He's gonna explain it best we can. Simon Git Lernid with the...
Hey, what's up? Big Earl, Northtownsound. How's it going, everyone? Gonna do a video here. I've been posting a lot lately. Got these new pedals from Mosky here. These little one knob jobbies. Today, we are going to be learning about buffers. There's the buffer. Focus on the buffer, would you? On the buffer. Okay, so what do we mean by a buffer? If we're looking at a basic bypass circuit, what you're going to have is an input of some sort. That's going to hit a wire, which is ultimately going to hit your output, which goes to your amplifier or whatever. That internal wire will have a send and return circuit, which is controlled by your foot switch. When the foot switch is open, it hits the rest of the circuit to create whatever the effect is that you're playing, which is pretty straightforward. A buffered circuit basically takes an input jack of some sort, which goes to a wire, which then hits your buffer, which is sort of like a preamp circuit. It's not quite, but you get the right idea. That then goes to your output jack, and then your send and return for your effect comes through the buffer. Now, there are true bypass pedals and effects that have a buffer stage after the switch. But when we're discussing buffers, we're talking in line. So your signal is going through a particular board. Some people say that's going to affect my tone. A bad thing? Maybe not. So who's going to want to use a buffer? Well, there's two kinds of people who want to use them. There's people who play things like SMAHUIs and TMAHUIs and stuff like that with the kind of weak single coil things. Or people who play funky guitars with funky low output pickups. Now, the reason why you may want to use a buffer is because, as cool as these pickups are, sometimes you need something a little beefier, something that's a little fuller, something that's a little more even sounding from string to string. Okay? As great as these, especially those, can sound, you've got to sometimes sonically be a little fuller. So, you can use a buffer. There are other ways, of course. Now, the other way around that is to use a compressor. Now, a compressor has an advantage over a buffer that you can control it a little bit better, depending on how many controls you have on it, obviously. Whereas with a buffer, you just basically get a flat rate of doing things. You can't finesse it any. The problem with a compressor is you lose your dynamics. Okay? And I'm sure we've all seen some sort of musical situation where you have a guitarist playing an SMAHUI or a TMAHUI going through a compressor and yada yada with like a rhythm section or something like that, really small bands. And they play all night, and yeah, they play, and they can get louder and they can get quieter, but they have no dynamics. They can't get harder or softer. So, in essence, they might as well be playing a synth or something else where there's no dynamics to it, right? That's the advantage of a buffer. A buffer allows you to retain your dynamics. If you want to play softer, it comes out playing softer. It doesn't get amplified up the way that a compressor does, right? This is not a new idea. Okay, so I kind of showed this one on the True Bypass video. It was kind of buried in with the rest of the rambling, so I'm going to show it again. So back in the 80s, I knew a lot of cats that were SMAHUI players, TMAHUI players, and what they would do is they would grab an effects pedal, whatever they could find during the day. This here, it's a greenback Boss. Bosses were used because, well, they were common. Common as dirt, as they used to say, and they are not true bypass, which is true of most pedals that were out in the 80s and 90s. And they would plug their guitar going through the pedal into the amp and never turn it on. You didn't even need a battery. This doesn't have a battery in it. And I'll show this trick again in real time. So I've got Ritchie going here, doing the SMAHUI thing on the bridge pickup, that horrible sound. Okay, then real time. Just gonna plug this bad boy in, and again, it's not on. There's not even a pedal or a battery in it, and here we go. So you can hear what's happening there is that it's basically getting rid of some of the high-end shrillness of things, and it's kind of tightening up the bottom end a bit. So again, without. Then swap it back. So even though I'm just recording with the iPod's mic, you can really hear what the difference is there, okay? And this is going into a solid state amp. Doesn't have to be tubed to do this. This is one of the biggest advantages of buffers. If you're sitting there playing with whatever crazy riffs that the Esimahui people are into nowadays, by doing this, I don't know. It just kind of smooths the sound out rather like a compressor would without ruining the dynamics. So if I go through and I'm doing... You can't really do that sort of thing with a compressor. So the other place where you may want to use a buffer is if you've got old funky pickups. I'm playing Michael now, and yeah, geez, you thought that Strat didn't want to stay in tune? Oh my gosh, but anyways. A little more high output than what those Esimahui pickups were, but still. Unfortunately, the desk won't sit on top of this, so I gotta put it in front here. But now, actually, let's just do this again. Into buffer mode. So if you can hear that, it's kind of getting rid of some of the transients without compressing it. It's kind of smoothing the sound out, and it's tightening it up quite a ways. So if I just play an arpeggiated bar chord here. So it's tightening it up a little bit, and yet you still have the dynamics. And then of course you have the advantage on this pedal that you have a boost with it too, but boosts and this particular solid state amp don't work. So, but hopefully I don't lose it there. So it gives you a couple of tonal options to go with, one which is a lot smoother, the other one which retains the twang and everything like that. So depending on the musical situation, works better for you. And just because people are going to ask, No, I have no clue what this thing is. It didn't have a name tag on it when I got it. I've had this longer than a lot of you have been alive. Bridge number 3, tailpiece number 2, nut number 2, I believe. The only problem is these poor old tuners. If I can flip this thing, these poor old tuners are finally pooched, which really sucks. I'm gonna have to try to save the buttons on it. And the only regret that I have with this guitar, so it came with this horrible Rolling Stones Goat's Head Soup sticker on it. Yeah, that was a great record. I had an SNFU and no one else wanted to play sticker on here, and I took it off. I still don't know why, and I'd like to put one back on. So anyways, that's Michael. Enough questions. You know about as much as I do. Sounds wicked. So yeah, buffers. Just learned something about buffers there. So like I said, SMHUI, low output pickups, your lipstick tubes, stuff like that can be awfully useful. You got old budget basses, they're really useful for that. You kids that play the bottom end F word guitars that start with an S, you're playing those into your low wattage tube amps. Buffers are great. So there you go. So there, it's a video. And hopefully you learned something with the Fat Man, okay? There you go. Big Earl, northtownsound.com. Thanks a lot for watching. Later.